What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Tee It Up. I'm your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. Today, we are not going to waste any of your time. We're going to dive right into the NBA Finals. Game 3 last night was what I would call a movie. I'm going to talk like the young kids. Last night was a movie. The Indiana Pacers, they do it again. I feel like every time we count them out, they find a way to respond in a way that makes us want to change the way that we think about the Pacers. It's kind of weird in a sense because here the Pacers are a fifth seed who a lot of us respected and gave credit to, but I feel like there's been a lot of doubt. They beat the Bucks, right? There was no Damian Lillard or whatever. It was like, okay, do your thing. But now here's the real test. Here's the Cavaliers. They found a way to beat the Cavaliers, and we were like, all right, you know, they got it. They playing good, but the Knicks are fully healthy. There won't be any injuries here. And they beat the Knicks. They won 2 games on the road to start the series. And then it was the same thought. And I feel like the NBA Finals stage is where it was a little bit acceptable, right? You beat the Bucks, you beat the Cavs, you beat the Knicks, but the Thunder are unlike any of those teams that you played before. And they had that comeback win in game 1, and it was kind of crazy. It was like, oh, they're doing it again. There's no way they're going to continue to do this. And then in game 2, the Thunder kind of sat up, dialed in, and it was a glimpse of what a lot of the basketball world expected this series to be. And no disrespect to the Pacers, a lot of us felt this was going to be a very short series, probably 5 games, and the Thunder would, take care of business in a lot of these games. And when we saw game 2, it felt like, oh, here it goes. This is when the Thunder kind of play serious and lock them away. They got their 1 win. So for them to respond the way that they did so quickly in game 3, how they did, it really opens up my mind into thinking that the Pacers really do have an actual chance to win this. I was under the assumption that they would maybe be a little bit competitive. Maybe they could squeeze a win in at home. I thought they would win game 3 or game 4 to extend the series. Never in a million years that I think they would win that first game on the road again. Yet they did. And even after they won that one, I was like, okay, OKC is probably going to get the message that the Pacers aren't just going to roll over, and they'll probably handle business and make the series look a lot like game 2 because they had control in game 1 for the first 4.5 quarters or 3.5 quarters, excuse me. So for the Pacers to bounce back the way that they did in game 3 and take control of this series again, it was really impressive. The first thing that I feel like allows them to continue to have a chance going forward is the way that they were able to gather around OKC's defense. In this past game, it didn't look like it bothered them as much as it did in the first 2 games. And I feel like one of the biggest things that OKC has used to their advantage throughout these playoffs is causing turnovers. The turnover battle has been such a favorable thing for the OKC Thunder that has given them such an advantage over these other teams. Again, against the Grizzlies in the first round, I think they forced 19 to 20 turnovers a game in that series. The Timberwolves and the Nuggets, I think, both average about 16 to 16 and a half turnovers a game. And when you look at the box score or even look at the pattern of the game and the pace, those turnovers, especially the live ball turnovers, it allows the Oklahoma City Thunder to really take your life away. Those transition points, those easy buckets. This is a team that doesn't have some crazy out of the world offense in the half court, but they do have an MVP who can average 35 points a night easily and get to the line. And so I feel like you bail them out by allowing them to have 20 plus points in fast break or transition opportunities. And for the Pacers last night to kind of negate that and use it against the Oklahoma City Thunder, this is one of the first times where OKC loses the turnover battle. And I was very proud of the Pacers because they're not a team that's known to have as many defensive weapons to be able to force that type of amount of turnovers and allow themselves to play with more pace and play with an opportunity to get easier buckets. OKC's defense is a nightmare. I don't think it's going to change. Even if you're up 2-1, that defense is going to find a way to continue to suffocate you, to continue to make things as tough as possible. The Pacers are going to have another game where they turn over the ball a lot. I would be a fool to expect that to go away. But the one thing that you do have to your advantage, if you're the Pacers, is that you play fast anyway. So a lot of those turnovers are going to be a part of the game. You just got to figure out a way to limit it and allow them to not be those live ball turnovers. We saw in game one that they won on the road. They had about 24, 25 turnovers, but because a lot of them weren't live ball, it didn't turn into a lot of points in transition, right? It wasn't a lot of points off of turnovers. So, if you can keep that going on, this could be a different situation than we all expected going into this series. Another key thing for me is one of the keys that I brought up last week for the Pacers, and it's the aggression of Tyrese Halliburton. Again, the Pacers win another game where Tyrese Halliburton shoots more than 15 shots, or at least 15 shots, and scores more than 20 points. It's been a conversation all playoffs long. It's been a conversation here on Tee It Up. The Indiana Pacers feel, look, and play like a totally different team when Tyrese Halliburton is playing with a more aggressive mindset. And again, to elaborate for the people that aren't, often listeners here, when we talk about the aggressive mentality, we're not saying just take stupid, dumb shots. We're not saying be a selfish teammate. Tyrese Halliburton has enough IQ and he has enough, intellect about the game to not position himself to just take 25-foot bombs that's going to hostage his team or hold them back. But when he is turning a corner, when they are going under a screen occasionally, he has to be able to turn on his scores cap and take advantage of that and make OKC feel like they have to put so much attention on him that it opens up other, avenues and situations for other teammates to score. Benedict Mathurin was a lifesaver last night. He was a lifesaver. These are the games that you want to be able to win when you get that type of production off the bench. I believe they had 49 bench points, and I was watching the game last night, and we were watching in the studio, numbers on the board, and at one point, the Pacers had a small lead. And it was a bit concerning because it's like you're getting all of this help from the bench. TJ McConnell was giving you some energy. Benedict Mathurin was spectacular, and you only have a 4-point lead. And it's like that would be such a devastating blow to get this production and to not materialize it into a win, right? Because if that production doesn't lead to a win, then you go back to your locker room asking yourself, how the hell can we beat this team? If we win the turnover battle, if we score more points in transition, and we get 49 points from our bench and still can't win, then there's just no scenario that we feel like we're going to be able to come out on top. So I was very, very happy that the Pacers were able to use that production into a win and to be able to not have it fall flat on their face in a loss. The other thing that I think about going forward is when you have that night from Benedict Mathurin, when you have those moments from Obi Toppin on occasion, TJ McConnell, it's also a big booster because you're not, or at least in game 3, you didn't get a big Aaron Nesmith game. You didn't get some crazy Miles Turner game from the offensive standpoint, and you didn't get a crazy Andrew Nembhard offensive night. The door for that is still open in game 4, right? Like game 4, you might not get the Benedict Mathurin 27-point game in 22 minutes, but that could be the Aaron Nesmith 4 threes game. That could be Miles Turner hitting 4 threes. That could be Andrew Nembhard stepping up and giving you 19 points. So the door is still open, and that's one of the best things about the Indiana Pacers, that they find a way to weaponize every person on this roster in an offensive way. The fact that Thomas Bryant in that closeout game against the Knicks was able to hit the 3 threes. The fact that Miles Turner sometimes can put it on the ground and go at Chet. That Nembhard can have the moments he had in game 1. Nesmith can hit 3 or 4 threes in a quarter. We know Tyrese Halliburton, what he's going to do. Like Obi Toppin hit 5 threes in a game 1. To be able to weaponize every single person on the floor helps them so much in the long run, in my opinion. And we still have that game that I feel like Pascal Siakam is just going to look unstoppable. I feel like that's still in their back pocket. And OKC, you got to give them credit. They've done a much better job outside of that game 1 of making it as tough as possible for him. Pascal Siakam is still going to find ways to contribute and be effective. But I still feel like that big breakout game for him is just waiting. It's waiting. It felt like yesterday was going to be it. He came out super aggressive. I think he hit like his first 2 shots or whatnot. And it felt like, oh, here it is. But I still think that there is an opportunity for him to have one of those explosive nights that he had against the Knicks in the previous series. The other thing is a defense for the Pacers. They did a really good job last night on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and there was so much talk about Tyrese Halliburton and his performance in Game 2. I saw Kendrick Perkins saying, there's no more excuses. You're not a role player. You're a star. You got to play like one. I'm very interested to see if we're going to have the same conversation a little bit towards Shai and some of the guys on OKC. Maybe not to the same degree. Shai is the MVP. We know what Shai is about. But OKC in these playoffs, when they've had to get down and dirty in these close games in the fourth quarter where it's a little back and forth, they don't look or feel like the same team at times. We saw that in the Nuggets series. We saw that here last night in Game 3. And again, we are definitely nitpicking. This is a team that almost won 70 games. It's not much that we can say. But this team is definitely not used to, number one, losing, and they're not used to being in close game situations. So there's times where you put them in that situation, and they're not always as dynamic as they seem or feel in other scenarios. And I think last night was another good example of that. And I don't want to use their age or their experience or the lack thereof as an excuse for every single shortcoming situation or problem that they have. I legitimately feel like they just have not been in that situation a bunch during this series. It's hard to be prepared for adversity when you haven't faced any or faced that much. It's hard to know what your bread and butter is down a stretch for the last 5-6 minutes of a game when you on a regular have not had to really worry or care about the last 5 or 6 minutes of a game. And last night, the last 5.5 minutes, they didn't look like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the offense gets stalled. It doesn't have that punch. And it wasn't pretty. And I think Indiana did a really good job on Shai, sending the help late, allowing him to think. And he has to step up, in my opinion, as a better overall player. I think he has to figure out some ways to create some more scoring opportunities for the people around him. If Indiana is okay with sending bodies at you, you got to figure out a way to make them pay a little bit more, right? J-Dub, I think, did a really good job down the stretch in that second half, moments in the third quarter and in the fourth where he kind of just created for himself and gave some leeway and some help off of Shai. But when you talk about the Lou Dorts of the world, you talk about Chat being 0 of 6 from 3 and having a tough second half that he had. I think he only scored 5 points in the second half there. When you talk about the Cason Wallaces and the Alex Carusos and, Aaron Wiggins and have the same punch, there has to be some more simplified, easier ways for the Thunder to score down the stretch than just saying, here's Shai. And don't get me wrong, that's a great option to have, right? Like Shai gets it done. But as we saw in Game 3, it can be a lot. It can be taxing. It can be predictable. And you don't want to just limit yourself to one and only way to win offensively down the stretch. It's not realistic to be able to do that. And I think Indiana is getting a little bit more comfortable with their defensive game plan. And if Chad isn't going to be able to be a guy that can space the floor for them, they may have to think about really diving into that double big lineup again, which it was kind of strange to me that they went away from it after having the success that they had in Game 2. I understand they want to be able to keep up with the pace. I understand they want to space the floor a little bit more for Shai. But I think if Isaiah Chet Holmgren is shooting 0 of 6 from 3, it allows the Indiana Pacers to feel more confident to double and severely help, right? Because I think they're going to give up those shots to Lou Dort. I don't think that they're going to run Cason Wallace off the line in the starting lineup. And if Chet continues to struggle from the perimeter, that's just another big body in Miles Turner or whoever to drop and help. And it's just only going to clog up things more for Shai and allow him to, have to see bodies on bodies like he did last night. So I'm interested to see what Coach Daynoff can do if he's going to stay committed to the smaller lineup, if he's going to put the trust into Chet to make perimeter shots, if he's going to go back to the big lineup, or even if he doesn't change the starting lineup, will he commit more minutes to that situation or whatnot? And then for the Pacers, can they continue to cause turnovers? Can they continue to limit their turnovers? I was scared as hell. The opening quarter, the Pacers had 6 turnovers, and I was like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. I think they walk out of that quarter, in the opening quarter, 32-24. They're down 8 points. They have 6 turnovers. And it's like, man. This is not the start you wanted. But that second quarter, 40 points in the second quarter against this Oklahoma City Thunder defense. Benedict Mather coming off the bench, 5 of 6 from the field, 14 points. Major. That was the quarter I think Tyrese Halliburton kind of turned up his aggression. And to me, ultimately, that's the quarter that won them the game. You have the moments from T.J. McConnell still in the inbound pass in the fourth quarter. Once the Pacers started doing stuff like that, you kind of felt that this game was over. But yeah, I'm a little bit more open-minded. I still think that the Thunder are the favorites to win the series. They've been in this situation before. In the Nuggets series, right? They went down 2-1 and still found a way to prevail and win that series. Listen, they're a super ultra talented team. They have so many ways to beat you. They have so many different options offensively. They have the MVP, the guy that we're hearing some people say is the best scorer in the NBA without a doubt. Caruso has been shooting lights out. They're going to, again, have another one of those games, I believe, where they do turn the Pacers over a bunch. But I am interested to see how they're going to respond. My favorite thing about this series so far is how the Pacers have been able to put OKC's back against the wall. I thought the Nuggets did a really good job of that, and I felt like we've seen a crazy different team in the Thunder in that series. We hadn't seen the Thunder look the way that they did all year long until that Nuggets series. That's a Thunder team that looked uncharacteristic compared to everything else we've seen in all of this year. And that this series is going a little similar. Two different teams, two different styles, but to constantly put the pressure on the Thunder and to put their back against the wall, making them face adversity, making them have these grinded out late games like game 1 and game 3. It's a little different from them. In the Nuggets series, game 1 comeback. Got killed in the second game. And then game 3, you find a way to prevail. It's kind of going the same exact way. The only thing I can say about the Pacers that is way different than the Nuggets, besides the obvious things of Jokic and Halliburton, those main differences, the depth is real and the depth is here. The Denver Nuggets were a team that lacked a lot of depth. And a lot of the things that Oklahoma City loved to do, the Nuggets weren't able to take too much of advantage of, right? They had the inconsistencies with Michael Porter Jr. Russell Westbrook is the corner three-point shooter that you have, knowing that the Thunder are willing to give up the corner threes. Aaron Gordon was basically on his last leg in that game 7. There were a lot of things that went there. That's not going to be here so far in this series. The Pacers got guys that will kill you from the corner, and Aaron Nesmith, right? Ben Shepherds. The Pacers are fully healthy. The Pacers have faced adversity. Every series, the Pacers have faced adversity. Every single series. And so, again, I'm interested to see how the Thunder are going to respond. It's all this season long, it's been talking about their youth. It's been talking about their experience, their age. I've been one of those people that felt like that conversation was extremely drawn out. Felt like experience to a certain degree could become overrated. And I felt like they were proving that and now are proving that. And so, again, it's about going back to that drawing board, seeing what matchups you can have to continue to create some pressure and some uncomfortability for Tyrese Halliburton. The more comfortable he looks, the better this team is going to be. It's just that simple. They got to figure out a way to get the ball out of his hands and make the Pacers, get a little rattled. So we'll see what happens there. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also a little sad because this is basically it, man. This is it. It's up 2-1. 3 games of the finals have been down. We potentially, at the most, have 4 games left in the season. And it feels like 2 weeks ago, it was the start of the playoffs. We had 16 teams to talk about, to give these opinions and what could happen. And you blink, and now we're here at the final road. And now I'm prepping for the podcast, and it's not a long laundry list of topics. We're prepping for the Numbers on the Board podcast, and we're like, man, it's just It's not a lot to talk about. We're down to the final two teams. We got all of these empty days in between games that I'm kind of enjoying, but at the same time, it's like, man, I can't lie. I would love to turn on my TV and watch Joel Embiid play. Like, I feel like I have not watched Embiid play in years. You know, I'm already thirsty for the next year. We still haven't even hit the draft. They're saying that the offseason stuff is about to start. Like, I'm just ready to see some guys play. It's going by so fast, but going by so slow at the same time. And again, it's just one of those things that makes you kind of feel like you didn't appreciate the season enough. And I know I did. I know I watched as much as I possibly can. For one person with one set of a pair of eyes, I've watched as much as I can. But now this is bittersweet moment of getting down to the NBA Finals and just kind of being like, damn, this is it. Shorter episode today, obviously, like I hinted at, talking about the Fandoms. We're at the finish line of the NBA season. So we're going to bring on Christian. We're going to go around the league for some topics and some stuff maybe outside of the league as well. Y'all let us know if you like this type of stuff too, because I feel like this could be something that we do a little bit more in the off season. We'll have some of y'all submit some stuff that y'all seeing too. Because, you know, everybody, we have fans that are fans of all 30 teams. So it's like if you're give me a random team that you haven't heard anything about yet, Christian.
The Kings.
If you're a Kings fan, all summer long, you may only hear about the Rockets, the Spurs. Like there's a certain amount of teams that are only getting talked about right now because they can acquire Kevin Durant. But there may be a Kings fan that's like, man, I'm trying to hear something about the Kings just once. And so I'll leave that door open for them to potentially, but I also don't want to have 1,000 heavy biased questions. Why is nobody talking about the Kings potentially winning the 2026 championship?
Kings fans aren't going to be happy that this is what I'm bringing up, but I saw this on Twitter from an account, Damo8186, and it started off with this. It said, "This is the worst 5-year run in the draft I've ever seen," and it was the Hornets from like Kemba, which I found a little disrespectful.
Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
To right, all the way up to Kaminsky. But then someone dropped the Kings from 2011 to 2016. I want to see how many of these players you can name. It's really brutal what they did from 2011 to 2016.
Thomas Robinson.
He was 2012, yep.
Nick Stauskas.
Yep, 2014. Number 8.
Jimmer Fredette.
Jimmer, 10th in 2011.
Ben McLemore.
7th in 2013.
Willie Cauley-Stein.
Yep, 6th in 2015. So all you missed from 2011, 2015 was your boy Ray McCallum at the top of the second round. And then they had 4 picks in 2016, 3 first-rounders, and the second to last pick in the draft. And none of them lasted like over 2 years in the league.
Well, that's Papa Giannis.
Yep.
Who else is in there?
2 guys that played in the Final Four that year. Syracuse and Oklahoma.
Syracuse and Oklahoma. These were what round? Eric Moreland?
Mm-mm.
What round of picks are these players?
The Syracuse player went 22nd. The Oklahoma player went 59.
Oh, Malachi Richardson.
Malachi Richardson. And then Buddy Hield's backcourt mate.
I don't remember.
Isaiah Cousins.
Oh, Cousins. He had a 3-ball too. He was
pretty good. And then Scalabrine went 28th.
Scalabrine, okay.
That's a pretty bad 5 years.
But this is what I would say to King fans and the Damo guy. To me, I feel like the misses are more so the lottery picks. Because once you get outside of the lottery, you're just it's really hit or miss. But I do think when you scrunch down that viewpoint, and this makes it even worse. But yeah, when you go, Thomas Robinson was like the 4th overall pick. Jimmer Fredette was like the 7th overall pick. Ben McLemore was like the 4th or 5th overall pick. You had a stretch where you had top 5 picks, bomb, and you couldn't make anything materialize. The only thing that they had was Cousins, who I think was the 5th overall pick as well in his draft class. But if you were able to get Cousins, and there's no world where you hit on every single pick, but let's just say the Jimmer Fredette pick was Klay Thompson. You know what I mean? I don't even know if that's the same draft class. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. It may not. It may be two totally different classes. But let's just say, yeah, one of those other ones they did hit on Isaiah Thomas, who was the 60th overall pick, the last pick of the draft. He turned out pretty good. They didn't keep him, obviously. But it's always mind-boggling when, even like you said, the Hornets, when the Hornets got Kemba, it's like you just got to hit on, you just got to maybe hit on one other one and give him another all-star teammate. But like the Kings could not secure that for DeMarcus Cousins. Like, and then they started to be straight up stupid by drafting centers at his position. Papa Giannis, Willie Cauley-Stein. I'm like, bro, what the hell? Nick Stauskas, Jimmer Fredette, Ben McLemore. Like, what are we doing? Ben McLemore,
I liked him a lot.
I liked him a lot as well. But Nick Stauskas, I liked him as a shooter. Did not think he would be a guy that I would have taken lottery. And I was so against the Jimmer Fredette hype train as far as an NBA player. He was a rock star in college. But any scout that was telling people that Jimmer Fredette was going to be a star or even a starter, I was, as a young kid, like I would go to high school and I would have a lot of fights because I would be telling people, I don't know what y'all see in a Jimmer Fredette at the NBA level. I don't know where y'all see that going into anything crazy.
So they got Isaiah Thomas, 2011, 60th pick. So he cropped him from the screenshot under Jimmer, and then Boogie was the year before at 5. But also something I just noticed, we talked a few months ago about teams kind of chasing the March Madness risers up the board. That's like everyone they took.
Thomas Robinson, Ben McLemore, Nick Stauskas,
Richardson.
Yeah.
Richardson, no one thought he was anything until
he had a really good turn.
He went on a heater. He scored like 15 points the second half against Virginia when they had that comeback. But that's funny that we talked about that. And then we look at their bad drafts, and that's what they did.
So that's what their scouting department was. It was probably like a bunch of amateurs who was just like watching March basketball and was like, oh, this Thomas Robinson guy is legit. Now, before we move on, could we see the names before and after their pick?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny you said that because my next thing I was going to say is, do you know who the pick after Thomas Robinson was in 2012? He was the 5th pick.
No, I don't.
Damian Lillard.
To the Blazers. So that's the Anthony Davis, Austin Rivers, Pelicans year. That's the Klay Thompson year.
No, I don't. I think Klay was the year after.
Klay was with Kemba.
I went to the draft when I was 12. I remember this draft.
Klay was with Kemba then.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was Anthony. It was AD, Kid Gilchrist, Bradley Beal,
Deion Waiters.
Oh no, you're right. Deion was 4. Deion was 4
to the Cavs.
Robinson, Lillard,
and then 7 was Harrison Barnes.
I think so. I think KCP was 8 and Terrence Ross was 9. I think.
Boom. Boom, 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 boom.
That's the only draft that I can do that well because I was there. And when I was a big OKC fan, they took Perry Jones at the last pick of the first.
Which I liked at the time. I can't lie.
Do you remember when he had that stretch, like the beginning of the year KD missed, where he had like 25, like the first like.
Yeah, it looked like they had something. Hell yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He's gonna be at the big 3 also.
I like that. Shout out to Perry Jones. I like Perry Jones, man.
All right, well, that was a sidetrack. The first thing I did want to ask you about was this Knicks coaching search. What
about the Boogie Cousins? We was on the topic of the Kings. Boogie Cousins in Puerto Rico going crazy.
Oh yeah. What do you think about
What do you think?
Man, I didn't see the clip. Was there a clip from it?
Yeah, hell yeah, it was a clip. It went viral.
I saw Evan Fournier, his gesture in the creek.
So I'll say this because I know people know that I love Boogie. So, fandom has gone crazy, and it's hard for me to speak on because it's in the Puerto Rico league. I have no idea what the environment there is like. I don't know what the sports culture there is like, but I do know in America. I told my guys this when we went to the Pacers game. We're like, "You good over there?"
Yeah, I was watching the clip. That's great.
Well, when we went to the Pacers game, it was mind-boggling, like how many fans it felt like paid their money to kind of try to verbally abuse or disrespect grown men on the floor from so far away. It was like there were certain adult men who are older than me that I would look over and they're like, Jalen Brunson is up. Karl Anthony Towns is up. Josh Hart, you are. They just want to say whatever. It's like a satisfaction certain fans get out of just being like, "Ooh, I get to I get to call them out of their name. So it's very weird and strange, this infatuation that people have. It was so bad that this guy was a Pacer fan. The woman behind us, who was also a Pacer fan, was like, "Hey, like there's kids around, like relax. Like we get it. You are a Pacer fan, but my goodness, you're super vulgar right now to these people who can't even hear you." So fans are kind of, they're kind of crazy. But DeMarcus, he does have to be better. He's an NBA vet. Who has had experience, I think. And I think because people know that he could react, they try to take it up to a different level. And so that's all. I would say, yeah, you got to be able to kind of stay calm and cool, collected in those situations. Now, after the first situation, there's no defense I can put up for the fans. I personally would never be throwing beverages and food on players. That's just something I personally wouldn't do. Because then you deserve to get your ass whooped. The last time, we've seen those things, people have gotten their ass whooped. So that was my thoughts. I don't really have too much else to say on it because, again, I've never been to a game in Puerto Rico. I don't know what the culture like is over there, but yeah.
Nowhere should it be acceptable to be throwing stuff at people. And I even the yelling stuff, like I understand some fans like, oh, whatever, I'm having some beers. It's not that serious. But like, I just think that's so lame. Like, I just think it's so lame. Like you're paying to go watch these guys who are better, like objectively better than you, like in the sense that look what they're doing with their lives. Like they're a professional athlete. You would in a second, want to be a professional athlete and to just like think that you can talk to them like that, or that it makes you feel good about yourself. Talk that. I just find it pretty.
Yeah, if you're going to do it like the dude that was next to me. Do it from way far where they can barely hear you. They won't even be able to recognize you. But if you're courtside trying to do that where they can hear you and you're trying to be heard, you're trying to get a reaction. Again, a lot of times you see these instances, these are grown-ass adults. These are not 17-year-old kids. These are not 16-year-olds. It's not a 21-year-old. These are like 38-year-old men who be in these. I remember when LeBron got the lady escorted from the Pacers game that one year, a couple years ago, back when he was still wearing number 6. That was a full-on ass grown lady. That was not a teenage girl. That was a grown-ass woman. These are grown adult people who fucking know better. And it blows my mind that you would pay a top-notch dollar. Again, don't know how much it is in Puerto Rico, but to sit courtside and try to go above and beyond. I feel like every player has an understanding that fans are going to heckle. Fans are going to talk shit. That's just a part of the game. But when you start to go above and beyond for a reaction, you're going to get one. And I think we in society have made it to where it's such a dumbass thought process to say because a person or a player makes X amount of dollars, they should know not to. They should be emotionless and not be reacting to anything anybody is saying. It's the same conversation with KD. Man, KD make $40 million a year. Why he replying to people on Twitter? Because that's what the fuck Twitter is made for. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything doesn't mean that, every time somebody replies to somebody on Twitter doesn't mean that they bothered. You can be taking a shit and reply, to a tweet. It ain't rocket science. You don't go above and beyond how people try to make it. Man, Kevin Durant responding to people on Twitter. Oh my gosh. He don't have anything better to do. It takes 10 seconds to say, no, that's not true. It takes 10 seconds. So, but again, like I told people before, fandom is one of the biggest scams in the world, in my opinion. That's another conversation for another day.
What do you mean by that? You said it's for another day, but I don't know what you mean by that.
Fandom is a scam in this way. A team is an organization, right? It is a business. They are looking to profit and make money off of your fandom. The more extreme fandom you have, the more profitable the team is. You have certain fans who have allowed themselves to be manipulated to that's their entire identity. So they're going to buy as many tickets to the game as they can, no matter how much the prices jump. Like, for example, how many times have you heard a fan base talk about being pushed out? Oh, the Warriors, they win now. So now the people who were there for the Monte Ellis days where this team was not that good, they can't afford to go to as many games anymore because we've won championships, and now the real fan is pushed out. To me, that's insane. Imagine this podcast got as big as what it is. We're now, Omaha ESPN, and imagine our day one fans who supported when we were in the basement and we were through the wire. Imagine that they can't support it anymore. Y'all can't follow us now. Y'all, in order to follow us, y'all got to pay $1,000. Like, imagine us pushing that. In what world is that acceptable? To push out the people who supported you when you were down in the dirt? Like, you get what I'm saying? And the people dedicate. I just think it's a scam. I think people go above and beyond to support teams that don't give a fuck about them. As much as I support the Knicks, man, the Knicks ain't gave me a free thing yet. So why I don't, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that don't understand that, and the organization ain't trying to get you to understand that. They'll come back and they rebrand in jerseys every year. They'll sell you the same jersey 7 times. 7 times. Hey, here's a regular jersey. We put this small patch on it. Now it's a $250 jersey. How many, Christian, tell me this, how many organizations have a program for fans? Have you heard about any programs?
I don't know what you mean by program here.
These are billion-dollar teams owned by billionaire people. I haven't heard, I think this year there was some team that did something with their concessions. Was it the Nuggets? Was it
the Suns?
The Suns? Boom. It was the Suns. How many times do you hear about that?
Well, I think it's important that I agree with your general sentiment. That's why I think it's important. Like the Bulls, I know specifically because I'm here in Chicago. Like, I know what they do, the different community events that they do, and I feel like that kind of stuff does mean a lot when you have send players to a hospital, or when like the Bulls they're expanding the United Center campus. They're gonna have more courts there. They do a Bulls Fest there. I feel like the teams, especially if you're a bad organization like they are right now, you better give back to the community, because these people are wearing your colors. It's free branding every time they wear something, and so come and support a team and paying a lot of money for a team that y'all aren't even making decisions that show that you're trying to build a championship contender.
But to me, when you talk about those, to me, that's the bare minimum. Is my point.
Right.
Because when you think about what it takes for an arena to be built, what goes into these arenas and all of these different things to be facilitated by the city, the least you're going to do is give back to the community. That's the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. But even outside of that, because players and people, they can do that on their own as well. Players give back out of their own pocket as well. You know what I mean? But just for your fan, when the Suns did that, it became headlines because we don't hear things about that. And I'm not here to say that they're not doing anything, but I don't really feel like I feel like the scales are very tipping over until the fan being kind of scammed out. And so that's why I tell people all the time, people think it's a front. The Knicks don't control my day. I support the Knicks, but if the Knicks lose, I'm not stressed. The Knicks don't really give a fuck about me. The Knicks don't even know that I exist. The Knicks don't even follow me on Twitter. How many people favorite teams follow them on Twitter or give them a free game or a free ticket? You know what I'm saying? It's a deeper conversation to have, but I do think the scam is the people that go overboard. I'm talking about we went to that Pacers game and we found out the next day that a Pacers fan stabbed some Knicks fans at a bar. That type of fandom is just not. That shouldn't be. You shouldn't be caring about a team that much, man. And don't get me wrong, there are some psychological things that exist there too for anybody to want to stab somebody about a game. But I just think that sometimes, with a certain perspective, fandom can be a heavy scam, and teams can take advantage of your fandom. In reality, that's what they're prioritizing. I don't know too many organizations that's prioritizing making sure that their fan base is happy and secure. Hey, did you see the playoffs when Steve Ballmer flew out that section of fans so that they can go to the game 7 against the Denver Nuggets? Why the fuck don't I see more of that? Why don't I see more of that? Why isn't there a league-wide program for straight A students? hey, if you bring your report card to the game, you get these concessions for free. I'm not saying they got to lose money. I know they have to make money. But why isn't these things league-wide like things? Why isn't there stories that there's a team that allows their biggest fan, right? Because they have all of these different things that can track who buys tickets, who bought the most tickets, who has been a season ticket holder for, and says, hey, we're going to allow you to sit courtside this one time. We allowed our biggest fan each year to sit courtside for one game. You telling me they can't afford to do that? Just one game. They'll make the money back in the next fucking game. Those are the things that I'm talking. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things I think about. If I ran a team, especially one of these small market teams, and I had a fan base that was going hard for us. We had people that was being season ticket holders when we were winning 22 games. There is something I'm going to have to do to reward these people for being loyal and giving us their money when we didn't necessarily deserve it. Because a lot of these teams, if you look at it, they don't deserve it, man. They don't deserve it. There's a lot of people that own teams, and the last thing they care about is winning. But they're going to make you, as a fan, think that they care about winning so you can stay invested enough to spend your money. It's a scam. You rooting for this team, putting your blood, sweat, and tears. You buying a foam finger. You buying a jersey. You got cups for your team. You got the fucking hat. You might have a bumper sticker. Your kid is going to school with the gear on, and all they doing is figuring out how to make you buy another one. They don't give a fuck about putting together a winner. Let's just win enough to keep them invested to run them pockets.
When the Knicks were bad,
yes,
what was your emotional investment in terms of watching them in the regular season and being mad about different decisions of trades, free agency, draft? How has your relationship with the Knicks evolved in this era since they've been good the last few years versus when they were really bad in like the late 2010s?
When they were really bad, the only thing that they did that made me emotionally feel away was trade Kristaps Porzingis. But even after that initially happened and it died down, it gave me time to relax. But on a serious note, it hasn't really changed a bit. We work in a space where it's entertainment, so you play into things and you got to express yourself. You have to give your opinions. But again, I can't remember a day where I just had a bad day because the Knicks fucked up. I don't think I ever have had that moment. Even like right now, I'm a White Sox fan. The White Sox are terrible, but it ain't changing me. You know what I mean? I'm not like moody or. Now I will say, for the basis of the sport, it's always tougher for me to keep up with baseball when the White Sox suck because I don't really want to watch too much of them on a consistent basis. And by that point, I don't really want to watch the AL Central Division, especially when Tigers have been one of the best teams in NBA, in MLB. It does not make me want to watch baseball. But yeah, it hasn't changed much for me. I mean, the Knicks being good is fun. It's exciting. My first time going to Madison Square Garden. The teams were not that good. Mario Hezonja and Emmanuel Mudiay was the backcourt. So as far as how much it's changed or evolved, it hasn't really much. I get frustrated because I'm a basketball fan, but the frustration doesn't live long. I never feel like I'm having a bad day because the Knicks lost. You'll have excitement, you have disappointment, and you'll have frustration right in the middle. And that's pretty much it. Right now, the Knicks don't have a coach, and they don't look like they had a really successful or smart plan. But it is what it is.
Let's transition to that. So they keep getting denied access to interview. They're shooting for some of the best coaches in the league, obviously, but just the fact that this is public information that these reports are leaking. How are you feeling in the post-Tibbs era, and who do you have a intended target at this point?
I think the next guy that's going to be the real target is going to be Johnny Bryant, or like Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins. Those guys are still out there. I think it looks crazy and it looks funny from like the outside, but when you kind of just think about it for a second, I mean, they're kind of doing the right thing. They know that they're the only open vacancy, so they're taking their time and they're just kind of seeing if somebody can be had. If there was a world where we could talk to Ime, or if we could talk to, my mind is blanking. Who else did we try to talk to?
J Kidd, right?
Yes, Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd. If there was a world where we could talk to Jason Kidd, then let's do it. Let's give it a try. So I'm not fully panicked. I know it does. The optics does make it look crazy, but I still think that at the end of it all, we'll still have some really solid, good options there. But it is funny to kind of look at, and it's like, who do the Knicks think they are? Where they could just ask 9 teams, and most of them are playoff teams. Like, hey, let us talk to your coach real quick. You know what I mean? It's just funny to think that they can do that. But I'm not mad at them. You know, do your due diligence. You know, cross every I. I mean, dot every I, cross every T, and you go about it. It's going to be a long search, as it should be. We have high aspirations, so I ain't too worried or concerned. But I do know and understand what it looks like optically to the NBA world.
You said last episode, I think, that even if you like Johnny Bryant, like talking about in the NFL, organizations, front offices do a better job of being aligned with the roster. Like, even if you like Johnny Bryant, like, how are you feeling if they do bring him in? Just
I mean, nobody's going to really be aligned. So that's once you fire the coach, that's out the window. So whether it's Johnny Bryant, Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins, even if they could have talked to Jason Kidd and got him, nothing is going to be aligned, because once you fire Tom Thibodeau, everything is off base. It's all off now. So the alignment thing kind of goes out of the window. Luckily, though, I think we are a competitive team, and this is where your alignment can kind of not always be 1,000. But when you are like a rebuilding team, I do think it is good for a rebuilding team to have a GM and a head coach know what they want, know what they're trying to do, and then together they can build that team up. Like the Utah Jazz, who I know are not in the greatest spot, but you have Will Hardy and you have Danny Ainge, and together they'll be able to really figure out the type of team they want in tandem, and they'll be able to build from there. So those are just the things that I think about when I talk about alignment. But because you have a Eastern Conference Finals team, I guess you can maybe sacrifice a little bit of that. My only thing with the Johnny Bryant thing, less about alignment, would be that you would be throwing a first-time head coach into the fire of having an Eastern Conference Finals championship type of expectation. And that sometimes can be unfair.
Kevin Durant, sweepstakes, heating up. Rockets, Spurs, Heat, Timberwolves, Knicks are the teams that have expressing the most interest. Obviously, some of those teams have more to offer. It seems like the NBA insiders are, implying that before the draft is when some of these things could happen. So we could see KD moved in the next couple of weeks, right? Where do you think? Where's your head at with the KD stuff, and where do you think he's going to end up?
Based off everything we know, my guess would be the San Antonio Spurs. And what we know is Kevin Durant wants to play with some good talent, right? He wants to have, obviously, a chance to go somewhere where he can win. I think being with Wemby, Fox, and then still maybe having enough to make some other moves, pivot or whatnot, the Spurs make sense. And then from all aspect of what the Suns want, right? The Suns want a draft pick in this year's draft, and they have the second pick, not the second overall pick, but they have 2 picks, and the second one being the 14th pick, I think would be a nice pick for the Suns, right? Because they're supposed to have had the 10th pick that the Rockets have, but it goes to the Rockets. So it wouldn't be that far off of your original pick if you're Phoenix. Some of these other teams, like Minnesota, would be giving you the 17th pick, a little bit outside the lottery, which still wouldn't be a bad pick. I think the Rockets, maybe they can give you 10. If they're willing to give you 10, there's a situation. But because the Suns are sitting down and talking with Kevin Durant, I think he's going to want to go to the Spurs, and I can't really blame him there. But there's also been rumors that the Spurs could maybe shoot higher and do more. I saw something where, like, they throw in the second pick and a bunch of stuff, and they try to go get, like, Jaylen Brown from the Celtics. And when I hear that, I'm like, that don't sound too crazy. But maybe that's just more of a pipe dream, and the Kevin Durant stuff is a little bit more realistic. So I'll go Kevin Durant going to the Spurs.
Do you think the Spurs are a better team next year with Durant or Jaylen Brown? I mean, I guess it depends on what you're giving up, but like, I was surprised to hear you that much more excited about Jaylen Brown versus KD.
I think Jaylen Brown allows them to be better for more years than just next year. And yeah. Jaylen Brown he'll be locked up financially, secured. You'll have a perimeter defender, a guy. Yeah, but you're right. It does depend on what you're giving up. If you're now throwing in Castle, which I don't think the Spurs are going to do in any trade. They weren't even sure that they would do that for Giannis. But if you do have a team where it's like Fox, Castle, Brown, whoever the hell you want at 4, and then Wembanyama, that's a nice team. The offensive flow, the offensive fit of Kevin Durant fits like a glove, obviously. But I think Jaylen Brown gives you a opportunity to be good for the next 3 or 4 years.
KD's making $55 million next year, and then, presuming he's healthy, he'll be 37. Like, it's hard to imagine him not wanting to hoop anymore. I wonder what that money looks like and what kind of a deal he'll be looking for.
I think it would be a mixture of how much success that they have, whatever team he goes to, and how many games he plays. He's going to have to be available, and that team is going to have to be good for him to get. I'll tell you this. Kevin Durant ain't making less than what he make now. You ain't going to see Kevin Durant come back for $30 million. You know what I'm saying? I think Kevin Durant could comfortably be a 2-year, $100 million extension where he still is walking away with $50 million a year. But we're looking at a situation where Devin Booker is about to get 75 for 2, which is $150 million. So if contracts are heading to the direction where guys are going to be making $75 to $80 million annually, you may can still get Kevin Durant for 60. And it may not look as bad, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I think the Spurs are probably the most interesting team to watch the next couple weeks, just having Fox and Cass already, all that flexibility. I also just think it's interesting, like, Wemby is just this precious gem. Obviously, he's still making he's making 13 mil with 2 team options. He'll get extended soon, obviously, but like, they should really prioritize who else can play the 5, because you're going to want to be as careful with him as possible. Like, you look at just the mess that the Pelicans have been with Zion. I'm not saying that Wemby's injury prone just because, of this, or maybe the parallel making in my head to Chet, who's, obviously missed his first season and then missed a lot of time this year. Like, I just feel like it's really important that, they have a good enough team, and especially as a good enough big man outside of him, so that, you know what I'm saying, they can be very careful with him.
I'm not mad at that at all. I think that's why they had some interest in Naz Reid. But I think Naz Reid is also a guy they look at that can play with Chet as well. So, yeah, I'm sure that they'll do their due diligence. Brook Lopez is rumored to not be going back to the Bucks. I think he would be, at his age, a safe, low-cost option who would still allow you to play the way you play when Vic is out there with the spacing of a big or whatnot. But no, I definitely hear you. You don't want to – but that's why I'm not necessarily against them just rolling. Like, if you get a chance to get Dylan Harper and you're not going to trade the second pick, and you can get a trade off with Kevin Durant with the 14th pick and Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and next year you go into a team that has Fox, Castle, Dylan Harper, Kevin Durant, Jeremy Sohan, Victor Wembanyama. Like, I still like just stockpiling the best players you can get. You know what I mean? Forget all of the we ain't trying to get Dylan Harper because we got Fox. I wouldn't be caring about that at all.
Mm-hmm. I think Sohan is just a perfect piece also to have for, moving forward with all the guards they have in Wemby, and if they bring in a guy like Durant on the wing, like, just that kind of Swiss Army knife defender.
I like Sohan. I like him a lot, man.
Last thing, couple college basketball topics for you. One is they're introducing a coach's challenge. I think it's, as much as I hate stoppages, I think this is a good thing for the sport, because I feel like there are some really bad calls that decide games, and like sometimes there's nothing they can do about it, but then they'll spend 5 minutes taking an out of bounds play or adding 0.1 to the clock. So that would bother me that they couldn't change that. So I don't know if you have any thought on that or just coaches challenge in general. I know Nick Wright said something a few weeks ago that this is getting really annoying. And like next thing we know, everyone's just kids. It's like everyone's going to be doing this. Like he suggested the idea of this is equal to this to stop people from doing this, which I think is really interesting.
It feels like overblown, but I damn near wouldn't disagree with him. It's one of the most. I've been saying that since they introduced it. What was that, a couple years ago? It's so annoying. Every single thing is this. Like this is the most annoying thing. I'm surprised it's taking this long for other people to feel that way. Like when they first brought this over here, I kept saying like, this is so annoying. I'm not mad at it. I like when we try to evolve. I think a challenge would be good, dope, like you said. I also read somewhere where the refs won't be able to just blindly keep going to the monitors either, though. So they'll find a healthy balance between it. My biggest thing that on the topic of college basketball was the halves versus quarters. Mm-hmm. I'm a halves guy. Give me 2 20-minute half. I don't need 4 quarters. Like I don't even understand that. That's one of the things that I wish they would do in the women's college basketball game. I wish they had 2 halves. You know what I mean? They do the 4-quarter thing. It just feels odd sometimes when I'm watching and it's like quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. I like the 2 20-minute halves. My philosophy, Christian, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if something is broke, you figure it out and you do what you got to do. Like the challenges. Like you said, there's been some egregious calls to determine games. So, hey, let's throw a challenge in there. That's all. But there is nobody saying that the game is suffering because we have 2 halves instead of 4 quarters. I'm totally against that. Totally.
I tweeted out that kind of the same thing. Like, why do we always have to be changing things? Like, I feel like it's a huge part of college basketball of how different those 2 halves can be. And I understand when the quarters you still have 2 halves. Like, there's still halftime. I get it, but like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If they think it's going to like fix, like, sometimes there's redundant timeouts. If like, there's 3 minutes of basketball with no whistles and they do media timeout and then there's one play, whistle, another media timeout. Yeah, that's stupid, but like that still can happen with.
Yeah.
I don't think quarters are just going to make the viewing experience like completely better. So it's like, why are you trying to change things?
And college basketball is one of the places where I don't feel like the complain and be like the NBA. NBA fans complain about every single thing. College basketball fans are going to complain, but they don't complain at the magnitude or the level of NBA fans. College basketball fans are there because they want to be there and because they enjoy what they're watching. The issues with college basketball have not been the viewing experience. It's been that guys are transferring 4 times in 4 years. You know what I'm saying? That's what a lot of the complaining is about. You know what I mean? The portal. You got guys entering the portal during the season. Those are more the things. I think the viewing aspect has been good. And if you throw the challenge in there, you get a world where it could be even better. I'm old fashioned when it comes to college. So I'm against the 4 quarters personally. But
I will say there's one there's one thing with the quarters is it prevents teams from getting in the double bonus like so early, which can then be a slog. If it's what I'm saying, if there's a lot of whistles, it just separates it into
that's true.
4 different windows for fouls. That's the one thing I will say I'm not mad about. But again, stop fouling.
I was about to say I was gonna say stop hacking. Yeah, stop hacking. But no, yeah. Again, that's a part of the college game that I think is something that makes it college has to have something that makes it them and not the NBA. There has to be some type of difference, right? Like keep the college 3, keep the 2 halves. There has to be a clear distinction between college basketball and the NBA. And so keep the tradition the way it is. But as always, this is Teed Up. I am Pierre, PB the Plug Andreessen. My man, producer Christian here with me. We will see y'all next week. Got a lot in store. So be ready to lock in for this offseason. It's going to be a big one. We out. Peace.